So what is it related to learning? Okay, we too as human being, we have our hardware. What are the input devices? Our eyes, through which we see. We have a vision. We look at the board. We look at illustrations. We look at books. We look at presentation. It helps us to read. It helps us to observe. Also, another input device is our ears. Through our ears, we hear. At this moment, you're listening to my lecture. So this is another input device. And nose, you sniff and smell in laboratory in certain circumstances. You smell. Okay, so smell or nose is also an input device. And also face, you show your reactions. That's an output. You smile, you show smile, you show sad expressions, you show expressions of joy. Okay, and there's output device, which is your mouth. You speak out. And also your hand, where you write. Okay, so you have input devices as well as output devices. So like the CPU, within the CPU you have several other departments within the CPU. So if we observe into the CPU, in the human CPU, you have this thing called the brain. Okay, this brain is like the storage device. It has the RAM, random access memory, and it has the processor, or it has a motherboard. It has all the things related to the functioning of this human device. So if we just explore what's there in this human brain, in the hardware part, you have this part, which is called the frontal lobe. Okay, this frontal lobe is the front part of our brain, which usually thinks and with which we speak, we use our memory, and we do movements. And then you also have the parietal lobe, where you process language, touch, taste, smell. Okay, and there are several other areas, like for example, occipital lobe as well as temporal lobe, and all of this stuff. So temporal lobe is where you do your hearing, learning, feeling, fear, and all this. So these are all basically the hardware which you are installed with, if you believe in a creator, by your creator. Okay, so as a student or as any human being, most of them, at least 95% of them, have good hardwares. They have good vision. If you have a vision problem, you have spectacles. They have hearing. If you have hearing issues, there are hearing aids. And you have a good brain which is functioning, okay, and doesn't have any defect. So the hardware is primarily really functioning good. So what is the hardware's capacity compared to learning? The education which we get compared to the hardware which we have is quite high. For example, if you take the latest computers, you have the 14th gen, which is going on in the desktop version. It has larger hardware capacity, more storage, faster processing speed, better screen resolutions, and all that. So it has a higher hardware capacity to run competitive programs. So if we have the 2022 programs to be run on a version of computer which was manufactured in the year in the 90s, it's not going to give you the real output. But as human being, our capacity to observe knowledge is far greater than what we are going to learn. So what the issue is, any computer to perform well, not only the hardware, but the software also needs to be well. If there is any corruption, if there is any virus, the software will not be working well. Okay, so you will have issues, you will have problems, you will not get the right output. So this is where we have to focus on. So 95% of us, we don't have any defects in our hardware, in our brain. It's functioning really well. That means we don't have any excuses or any reason to say that I'm not capable to study. So if we are having a problem, that's going to be our software. So correcting our software is what is really important. So what I do call the software as mental program. The mental program which we run within ourselves. This program, how did it got installed? So most of us, we get our mental program installed from the day we are born and when we grow. And majority of what I usually quote, either you run your mental program or be run by your mental program. So most of them are being run by their mental program, which had been already installed. And unfortunately, there are many viruses and it has not got updated for so long. And this mental program is the reason for our downfall. So it's important that we take charge on how our program is being done, and we need to reinstall or correct our programming, and we have to be in charge of running our mental program. So that is an essential part in education or whatever it is in our life.